Sarah, I know I do better when I track, but I just can't make myself stick to it. That is something I hear from women all the time. Do you have trouble with sticking to tracking? Well, in this video, you're going to learn why that is and what to do about it. Do you hate tracking? A lot of people tell me I can do it for a couple days, but then I kind of fall off the wagon, or they just really don't like tracking. So why do so many programs encourage you to track? A lot of the major weight loss programs like Weight Watchers, where you keep track of points, or using MyFitnessPal, or an app like Lose It or Healthy, they have you track your food. The reason why is that research going back as far as 1970 shows that tracking really does work. It is one of the most effective methods we have for weight loss in our world right now. So why do we struggle with it so much? Why is it so hard, even though we know it works for many of us? Well, tell me in the comments if you can relate to any of these things. Everything I'm about to say is either something I myself have said or other women have said to me when they come to my website, when they're in my Faithful Finish Lines program, when they're following one of my weight loss challenges. This is what they say. Tracking is too time consuming. Can you relate to that one? Tracking makes me obsess about food too much. I'll track for a while, but then I get kind of overwhelmed and then I just quit. Who wants the hassle? I just want to be normal around food. Tracking is too hard when you don't know the exact calories. Like, how do I figure out the calories when I go out to eat and the restaurant doesn't list the points, or I go to a church event, or I get together with my friends, or a party at somebody's house? I don't know how to track. Sometimes people will tell me I do always lose weight when I track, but I just can't stick with it. Or maybe I track really well all day, but then I kind of quit tracking at night, especially after dinner when I am having snacks. Or I track really well all week, but I kind of quit on the weekends and then I get started on Monday. Or I was tracking really well, but then some crisis happened. Somebody was in the hospital, my car broke down, I got, laid off from my job. We had this real crisis and I just couldn't even focus on tracking. Can you relate to any of these? Like I said, I think I have said all of these at some point or another. Well, I want to point out to you, first of all, you do not have to track to lose weight. Maybe you're one of those people that tracking really doesn't work for you. And if so, that's okay. There are all different methods that work better for different people. Weight loss happens one way, only one. There is scientifically only one way to lose weight, and that is to eat fewer calories than you burn. I was just reading some new research that is brand new, coming out as I'm recording this in 2023. And again, what the research was pointing to was it really is still eating fewer calories than you burn. Now, you can get to that method a lot of different ways, but that is what leads to weight loss. That's what fat loss is when we have extra calories, they are stored on our body. That's the nature of it. So you have to get to that goal. That's how to lose extra body fat. Whether you do it with tracking or not isn't necessary. So maybe you are one of those people that some other method is going to work for you. And if it is, then I think that's great. But what I will say is that for the majority of people, tracking can be a really, really helpful tool. And so in the rest of this video, I want to talk to you about how to overcome some of those barriers and why you do throw up as many barriers as you do when it comes to tracking. The answer actually might really surprise you. So keep in mind it's just one method. Also keep in mind you might not do it forever. Now, I will tell you, I'm about 20 years into maintaining a over 100 pound weight loss, and I do still track. I'm one of those geeks. I actually like tracking. It doesn't bother me. It's not a huge deal. Over the last few years, I've transitioned into what I call pre-tracking. So the night before, I track what I'm going to eat the next day. And then if I change it the next day, I just go in and change my plan. Also, after leading thousands of women now in weight loss challenges and Faithful Finish Lines, I would say there's a lot of benefit for almost everyone to at least try tracking sometimes, or at least certain aspects of what you eat. You might not track all the time. You might do it for a short period of time or a longer period of time. You might only track one particular thing that you need to focus on, but it really can be powerful. to do during your weight loss. I want to encourage you, it's actually not that time consuming. If your tracking is taking longer than like 10 to 15 minutes a day, you're doing it wrong. When it comes to tracking, if you're tracking every day, now if you're only tracking for a couple days, you would want to be like as accurate as you possibly can. Consistency matters more than accuracy. So at this point, after I've been tracking for so many years, I just estimate. I don't put in all the ingredients for a particular recipe. I just go and, okay, I had lasagna. There's about a middle of the road lasagna, and I'll pick that one. I track that. When I'm eating a salad, I don't worry about tracking every cucumber and every tomato. I just find side salad and I track that. I figure my side salad without dressing and no croutons is probably about 50 to 100 calories. Good. Put that in. I'm good. Let's go. So I don't worry too much about those foods. Now, I do teach calorie density, which is that foods have a certain amount of calories per pound of weight of food. And foods that are very low in calorie density, you don't even need to worry about hardly tracking them at all if you track them at all. I've got a separate video about that. I will put the link below this video. But those foods, research has shown you just really don't even need to worry. So this is your fruits, your vegetables, even some of your like beans and potentially whole grains. Those are things I would track those, but you just don't have to be that concerned about those foods. But then when you start moving up into higher calorie density, those are foods where we need to track very carefully. So things like olive oil, I would never glug olive oil into my pan like Rachel Ray when I'm cooking. That is hundreds, potentially like 1,000 calories, depending on how much you glug. And so those are foods that I'm very careful. So I'm using a teaspoon or a tablespoon. I'm weighing some of those foods with a food scale. Some of my trigger foods, for me, that's peanut butter. Y'all, I could be eating peanut butter out of the jar with a spoon, and I have lots of times. So that's a food where I need to be very careful because each bite is very high in calories. That is a very rich food that even 100 or 200 years ago, people didn't have constant access to the way we do now. People didn't have constant access to nuts. Several hundred years ago, maybe they would have to go forage for them and then they'd have to break open the shell. We just pop open a can of Planters, honey roasted, and we can chow down. So it's really easy to consume a lot of calories in today's culture. And so that's part of why tracking can be really beneficial, to recognize just how many calories you're eating. So if tracking is really not that bad, it's really not that time consuming, it's really not that hard, why are we so resistant to do it? And that is me too. Even though I love tracking now, there's still times that I find myself like, okay, I wasn't really honest. I have to go back and be honest how much I was actually eating, or I kind of underestimate, or I try to make the numbers look good. Like, oh, that shows I'm going over. I don't want to go over. Oh, maybe I really only had a half cup at lunch. Maybe it wasn't a whole cup. We play these games with ourselves. Why? Because the reality is nobody even sees your tracker most of the time, right? It's just you and you. So what difference does it make? Well, this is why. There is a saying about weight loss and our body weight. If you have a food problem, you have a denial problem. Or you could say it another way. If you have a weight problem, you have a denial problem. All of us, and that is absolutely me included, who have food and weight issues, we have some denial around our food. And that is why tracking is so beneficial. It brings us out of denial and gets us face to face with what we're actually doing. I have women who email me and message me and send me messages on Instagram and Facebook all the time, and they're so frustrated that they're not losing weight. And they tell me, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating like 1,000 calories a day. But the reality is there's somewhere, somehow, that they are eating more calories than their body needs. One of the first questions I ask, and a great question to ask yourself right now as you're watching this video, is what about the times you don't track? I'm not as worried about when you are tracking, because that's when we're quote unquote, we think we're being good, then we're tracking. But when we're not following our food plan, we quit tracking. That's the times to pay attention to. What I have discovered in my life over the last couple of years is that I really slip into denial of just how much I'm overeating. And when I'm eating those foods that are very high in calorie density, so that's chips and chocolate and nuts and peanut butter, it's so easy to overeat those foods and go, 1,000, 2,000 calories over my goal for the day and really not eat that much food. It's just that they're so calorie dense. So when you track, it's going to push you out of denial. And that's uncomfortable. And I get it. I just recently closed a weight loss challenge I did. It was called the Spring Weight Loss Challenge. We had about 300 women all together who did this challenge with us. We had about, I think it was like 250 who did the group experience with us on Facebook. And then I have a non-social media challenge, which actually you can enroll in anytime. It's self-guided. I'll put the link below. And for the live challenge, I gave them the extra bonus that if they tracked every single day of the challenge, which was 30 days, and posted their food log in the group, I would give them an extra reward. So everyone who did that earned a free workshop with me, and I let them choose the topic, which they chose self-sabotage. Now, eventually that is going to be available for purchase, but as I record this video, it's not ready yet. I'm going to do it just for them. And that really challenged them. And the reason why is because they hit these times of conflict within themselves, because they wanted the bonus, they wanted the prize, they wanted to be honest. These are women of integrity. I found that if you're watching this video, readers of The Holy Mess, you're an honest person. You have integrity, and you want to do a good job. You want things to show that you're following the rules. You're doing it well. So what would happen during those times that they overate? Then they had to kind of come face to face with some things. Do I post what I wanted to eat today, but not what I actually ate? Do I not post my food log and then I don't get the prize? Do I not post my food log, but then I still say that I did and I get the prize? They had this conflict within them. That is what's going on with you when you quit tracking. Something inside of you, because you still want weight loss, you still want to get to your goal weight or whatever your weight is, your healthy weight is. You have these goals, you want these things, but something inside you is feeling that conflict. So you might use some of the excuses like, oh, it's too hard, it's too time consuming, it makes me think about food too much, but I don't really think any of those are true. I think what it is you're coming up against a part of you that is giving you some trouble, and that's where the denial comes in. But those are the growth places. You wanna pay attention to those. Don't quit tracking during those times, but just start asking yourself some questions. Pay attention and say, you have to get really curious. Like, why do I not want to track right now? Why am I saying that tracking is so time consuming? I mean, yesterday I was totally fine to track. So why am I not wanting to track now? Or maybe you even need to go back and say, this is interesting because I track every day during the day, but then I never track at night. What's going on at night that I'm not wanting to pay attention to what I'm eating? You will be amazed at the progress you make. Even though I know this is uncomfortable, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. So what I told my Spring Weight Loss Challenge friends, and I will tell you this too, type this in the comments. This is the affirmation that we use together. I commit to ugly tracking. Type that in the comments. I commit to ugly tracking. And they would do that. Sometimes they would post their food log and it showed they were 1,000 calories over or 500 or 20 points or whatever. And they would say, I commit to ugly tracking. And that was kind of a signal of all of us like, oh yeah, I get it because I do it too. Sometimes I overeat. The reality is sometimes you're going to overeat. Sometimes you're not going to follow your plan. But the more you can be honest about that, the better progress you're going to make. So commit to ugly tracking and you will be amazed at how much your progress changes. Now, the other thing with ugly tracking and honest tracking that has to come along with it is self-compassion. Because the other reason we don't want to track, and this is also true of why we tend to not want to get on the scale to see what our body weight is, it's not the number. The number is just a number. It doesn't mean anything. The scale doesn't care about you. The tracker doesn't care about you. Honestly, other people around you don't really care what you ate yesterday or how many calories you went over. They don't care. So it's what we say to ourselves. What do you say to yourself and about yourself when you go over your calories or over your points or even with your body weight? Are you calling yourself names? Are you a bully? Are you beating yourself up? Well, then, yeah, of course you don't want to track. Or are you getting really curious? Can you treat yourself with love and compassion and say, wow, last night was really hard and I'm going to do my best to be honest. Here's what I actually ate. And then forgive yourself and move on, get back on track. I can tell you that a key strategy for me losing 100 pounds and keeping it off is the compassion and getting back on track. It's not that I'm perfect. You guys know I'm not perfect. You've seen my videos. There's one I just posted a short time ago about everything I overate one night. And that was like last week or 2 weeks ago. So, I still mess up, but that's okay. I just get right back on track. I treat myself with grace and compassion, the same grace and compassion that God gives to me. A way that I talk to myself when I've gotten off track is I treat myself with lots of love, and I kind of say to myself like, oh, sweetie, what happened? So instead of, toe the line, how could you have done that, Sarah? What were you thinking? You just have no willpower. No, I don't say any of those things to myself. Instead, I'm just curious and compassionate, like, oh, shoot, what happened? What was going on? What can we do differently? And I give myself a lot of love the day after I overeat. We tend to want to beat ourselves up or be super strict. I go the opposite. Like, wow, I just went through something really hard. If I really overate, my body might not be feeling good. Mentally, I might not be feeling good. I was in a tough place there. I was struggling. So the next day, I need lots of extra love, extra compassion, because I just went through something really hard and difficult. So if you can treat yourself with that kind of compassion when you track, you'll be amazed at how much more willing you are to track in an honest way. And then when you get honest, when you commit to ugly tracking, but honest tracking, you will be blown away at the weight loss progress that you make. I would love to hear from you. Will you do it? Will you commit to ugly tracking this next week? Tell me about it in the comments and we will do it together. I'm Sarah with The Holy Mess. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.